when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed. Tune in to Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, and join the conversation about how to heal our broken system to reverse our current health crisis. The entire world is looking for answers, and the truth is hidden in plain sight. Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, when you can call in and ask the questions that matter most to you.
And we're live.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, and welcome to Awaken Wellness Now with your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe. And we're live here on Dream Vision 7 Radio. Our number is area code 646-558-8656. And as always, go ahead and hit *9 to ask questions or give us your comments. I love to hear from all of you with your insightful and amazing questions and comments. And so today's topic is toxins. How to identify them around your house and how to get rid of them. And so that's a major topic that could probably take up about 10 podcasts, but we'll do what we can today. And so, we're all familiar with the idea that there are many toxins in our environment, but getting rid of them is a challenge for most of us. And most people kind of throw their hands up and say, well, how am I going to get rid of all this stuff? I'll just, take my chances. And, as we can see based on the statistics of our health here in the United States of America, that's not a workable solution. 65%, I think, or 63%, of Americans over the age of 65 have at least 2 chronic diseases. And I shouldn't say Americans because it's not the entire continent of America. It is really only the United States of America that has this statistic. We don't see that necessarily in other countries. Not that people in other countries don't get sick, but not to the degree that we do. We have the highest burden of chronic disease of any, so-called developed country in the world. And a major part of it, if not, I would say 75% of it is due to toxins. The poisons that surround us in our own homes, when we go outside, in other places of business and places like that. All these places are inundated with toxins, and if our bodies are not strengthened and capable of getting rid of the toxins, we will, inevitably get sick. As I was saying in the last podcast, disease is now the default state of being for people living in the United States of America. 50% of our children are expected to have at least one disease before they reach adulthood. And so we have to ask ourselves, well, why is this going on, right? What's happening? This is not just random because we don't see this in other countries. And so when something is really just plaguing your own country, you kind of have to ask yourself what's happening and take an honest look, around for the answers. And if we take an honest look around, what we see is just about everything that we have in our homes is toxic. And how that came about wasn't necessarily, there was nobody plotting against us to make it happen. It was in our attempts to make things more convenient. It was in our attempts to make people's lives simpler. Plastics were created or developed to make life easier. Glass breaks, right? And so we tried to develop something that wouldn't break when we dropped it on the floor. That was durable, that we could store food in, that we could store products in, so we could ship them and they wouldn't weigh as much, right? We could drop them, they would not break and spill their contents all over the place. It was innocent enough, why we wanted to have plastics. Unfortunately, things that are durable are also toxic most of the time, right? Things are degradable for a reason. And so the expectation of having things that would last forever has kind of come back and bitten us in the butt, if you will. And so, plastics are toxic. And so now we understand that we should not store our food in plastic. We certainly should not heat food or microwave food in plastic because it literally cooks into the food. And so out of an attempt for convenience, we have made, things extremely inconvenient at this point with disease burden. And so we have to kind of backpedal a little bit and see, how do we get ourselves out of this mess that we've gotten ourselves into when just about literally everything, the chair you're sitting on is toxic, the carpeting in your house is toxic, the cleaning products are toxic, the makeup is toxic, the bookshelves are toxic, right? The paint is toxic. The lotions you put on your skin, toxic, the toothpaste you're using, all toxic, right? And so it's very easy to become overwhelmed, right? But what I tell people is, don't worry so much about that. Where our power comes from is once you know that, now you can start to look for the solution to that, right? We know that the air is not clean. We know that the water is not clean. We know that our foods are inundated with pesticides, right? And so that knowledge is actually empowering and should not be frightening, right? I always tell people to flip it because people will start to panic when they hear like everything's toxic. Yes, everything's toxic. Anything that's man-made pretty much is toxic, right? And so flip that on its head, right? And say, okay, well, now I know. And now I can actually do something about that, right? As opposed to sitting around until, something bad happens, right? And so I like to empower people. I say, don't stop with the bad news. Be happy that you got it. And now let's work on how to fix that, right? And it's very fixable. It's not unfixable. And that's the good news, right? We can't change the climate necessarily, but we can certainly change what's in our homes and what we put on our skin and what we ingest and those types of things. And every little bit helps. The good news about toxins is most of them don't cause all the damage by themselves, right? They have to gang up on you to win, right? And that's what has allowed toxins to get away with what they get away with for so long is no one toxin, for the most part, is responsible for diseases. So that's how they defend themselves in court, for example. For example, the pesticide, the weed killer, with the trademark of Roundup, right? The only way they lost a case in court is after someone was actually exposed in their job to their product for over 20 years. That's what finally broke the back of this company and allowed someone to prove in court that their product was toxic. For the everyday user, it would be much more difficult to prove that it's toxic because it's by itself, it's not going to do you in unless you're exposed to it every single day for 20 years, like that employee was, right? And so what happens is you get a dental x-ray and that increases your risk by 2%, right? You eat a strawberry and that increases your risk by 1%. You put on some toxic lotion and that increases your risk by 2%, right? And so you can see how this begins to add up. Like no one thing's going to kill you all by itself, but they will add up. So if you're exposed to 1,000 different things that increase your risk by 1%, now you have 1,000% risk. And so it becomes easy to understand why toxins do what they do, but they do it in groups, in gangs, right? They don't do it one by one. one by one, it's hard to prove they're toxic. It's the cumulative effect. And so that's also good news, right? Because the more that you can get rid of, the better off you're going to be. And so we're going to talk about how to get rid of them. Kind of a step-by-step approach of how do I assess what's in my home? How do I know, what it is that's causing me, an increased risk of disease, and how can I substitute something else or get rid of that thing? Now, getting rid of it is a challenge, right? Because throw it in the garbage, right? And then it goes out in the atmosphere. And so unfortunately, we don't have that piece of the puzzle really wrapped up yet. But it's important to get these things out of your home and to not put them on your skin, ingest them in your mouth and things like that. And so how do we know what's in our homes that are toxic, right? The estimates are that the average American is exposed to at least 200 different cancer-causing toxins before they leave their house in the morning. Even the sheets we sleep on are toxic, right? Dry cleaning is toxic. You name it, it's toxic. And so again, it's not going to kill you all by itself. It's just increasing the risk by a little bit at a time until you reach that critical threshold and you kind of fall off the cliff. And so, just really asking ourselves, okay, what can I do in this moment to rid myself of these toxins, right? And what I tell people, the easiest thing is make sure that what you're using is actually a natural product and not a chemical product. And so when you are reading your labels, I tell people, if you see stuff on the label that you can't pronounce, it's very likely to be toxic, right? And your ingredients list should not be huge. It should be quite small. If you have an ingredients list that's a mile long on your vitamin supplements, in terms of the other ingredients outside of the vitamins and minerals that are supposed to be in it, don't consume it, right? The ingredients label should include your vitamins and your minerals and some antioxidants. But then when you read at the bottom where it says other ingredients, if that's a mile long, very likely those things are toxic, right? There should be 2 or 3 other ingredients in your supplements. If there's more than that, it's probably, going to contain a lot of chemicals. And so chemicals are usually hard to pronounce, right? Hard to read, they're very long, and so we tell people, if you're seeing a lot of that, probably not a good thing to consume, right? And you can Google these things, right? You can kind of Google these long names and see. Sometimes they are natural products and their chemical name, it just happens to be long. But if there's a bunch of them, it's very unlikely that they're all going to be clean, right? And so the first thing is read the label and see what's in it, right? And so now many companies are becoming, eco-friendly, and so they'll put their eco-friendly label on there. They may have organic labels on there. Unfortunately, in the United States, our criteria to label things as organic is somewhat lax as compared to other countries. But it's still better than not having the label, and so there are many, again, eco-friendly companies out there that are beginning to make products that are cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And so begin there, right? Begin by looking for the eco-friendly products as opposed to the, regular generic products that you have in your home. So some of the most critical things are the lotions you put on your skin, your makeup, make sure if you're, putting on makeup that it's natural makeup. In the United States, companies that make makeup are allowed to use over 1,300 known toxins that are banned in other countries. And so makeup is particularly toxic, right? So for women in particular, or even men, if you wear makeup on videos or, whatever, you want to make sure that your makeup is as natural as possible, right? And then you want to make sure you wash it off, with something clean, right? So your cleaning products, the things that you put on your skin, your soap, all of those things, you want them to be as natural as possible. There are some really good apps out now where you can look up the brand name and product that you're looking to buy, or if you happen to have it at home, right? If you open up your cabinets and you start typing into these apps the brand names and the names of the cleaning products that you have at home, you'll find apps. The Environmental Working Group is one such app that you can get at EWG.org. It's the Environmental Working Group. They're a not-for-profit organization that tests and rates products in terms of their safety. And so that's a great resource. So the first thing I tell people is go through your cabinets and look up the stuff you have in your home. If it doesn't get a good rating, put it to the side to be discarded, right? And then what you do is you look up in that same category what is safe, right? And so if, for example, your laundry detergent is considered to be on a toxic list, look for one that's not on the toxic list, write that down, and then make sure you order that to replace your laundry detergent, right? So I tell people, don't just get rid of all the toxic stuff and then go buy new stuff. That's overwhelming, right? So as something is running low in your home, so let's say you're running out of, dishwashing liquid or something, look up what you're using, and if it's on the toxic side, look up what's not on the toxic side and purchase that instead, right? To replace your dishwashing liquid. And then do the same when you're running out of hand soap and when you're running out of laundry detergent, when you need to change your makeup, although makeup tends to last a little bit longer, you might want to just switch that out. But these are things you want to do step by step. So that you're not overwhelmed, right? Because there are so many things. Again, don't rip up your carpets and throw them out and throw out your bookshelves and your chairs. Those things are not practical. But the things that you put right on your skin and that you ingest, make sure that those are as clean and safe as possible. Let's see. Question. I don't trust water out of the faucet. Rumored toilet to sink is being talked about at my coffee clutch. I have a faucet filter, but I use bottled water to drink. Now, hearing you talk about plastics, what can I do? Yeah, it's hard, right? What you can do, what I do is I still filter my water, but I put it in a glass bottle. And I just take the chance that if it falls, it'll break into a million pieces and I'll deal with it. But yeah, so I have a BPA free, but the issue with plastics is usually like BPA, right? And so make sure it's BPA free if you're going to have a plastic. And then I filter it when it comes out of the faucet, but then I put it in a glass container so that it's not in a toxic container, right? So that's what you can do with your water, is filter it. And then just put it right into a glass container and then just be careful with the glass, right? Or stainless steel. That's another option. You can do stainless steel that won't break. And that'll, keep your water clean. Question, my new floors are vinyl. Did I make a mistake by not getting wood floors? No, because the coating they put on the wood floors is also toxic, right? And so don't worry about the floors, right? What you want to focus on is what can I do something about, right? Not what I can't do something. You can't change the climate, right? So we're going to, do things that will help the climate, but we also understand we're not going to change that overnight. But I will change my internal climate, my internal environment in my own home. I can control more, right? So I'm going to control the foods that I eat. Eating as organically as possible. And people will say, well, yeah, but organic food's so expensive. Again, I always bring this back to the same argument. Disease is expensive, not organic food, right? And so disease is way more expensive than organic food. So I tell people, look at what you're investing in and, make sure you put a proper value on your health and on yourself, right? Once you have the proper perspective in terms of how valuable you are and how valuable your own health is, and how valuable, not being sick is to the world, to the people around you, to the people who rely on you. Once you put a value on yourself in terms of that, it becomes easier to spend the extra money on the organic food, the extra money on the eco-friendly products, because it does make a difference. And so you want to make sure that you focus on the things that you can change and don't drive yourself crazy about the things you can't, right? And we're going to talk about how to internally remove toxins, right? Cleanses and detoxes and such for the body itself. What we're talking about first is, how do I figure out what's in my house and what can I change and what can I not change? Now, there are many companies now who are coming out with more eco-friendly, construction materials, flooring, paint, different products that you can use in building your home so that it's more eco-friendly and safer for your health. And so when we come back from this next commercial break, we will talk about those things. And you're listening to Awaken Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and we will be right back.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE-integrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
ECSTATIC is a U.S. nonprofit dedicated to the dream of ending childhood malnutrition for millions of children around the world. Through the manufacture of Plumpy Nut and other nutrient-rich, peanut-based, ready-to-use foods, ECSTATIC has already delivered life and hope to nearly 1 million children in over 26 developing countries. To find out how you can join ECSTATIC's dream of ending childhood malnutrition, please visit ediciaglobal.org.
What if dreams can diagnose your life? What if we can meet the love of our life in dreams? Join host Kat O'Keefe Canavas, the #1 internationally best-selling author of Dreams That Can Save Your Life, written with Duke University medical doctor Larry Burke. Dreaming Healing is where we'll explore dreams, research, and interpret dreams from you, the caller. Dreaming Healing shows can be heard every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, with live shows on the first and third evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Come live your dreams out loud with Kat.
Are you searching for a way to help create global change? Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's vision is to have an eclectic group of radio hosts dedicated to educating, enlightening, and helping humankind with positive messages and tools that enhance lives using different modalities and programs. If you would like to join our team and help illuminate the universe, call Deborah at 508-226-1723 or Deborah at dreamvision7radio.com. This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we're back.
Thank you, Rachel. Welcome back to Awakened Wellness Now with your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe. You're listening to Dream Vision 7 Radio. And today we're talking about toxins, what to do about them, and how to find them in your home, right? And so the app I like to use is the Environmental Working Group app. You can download the app on the phone. You can go to the website and just punch in what you're looking for, and it will rate it for you. And then you can also do a search of what's safer, and it will give you that information as well. And so thankfully, we're living in an era where consumer demand is high enough that there are companies coming out with cleaner and cleaner products, right? But we still have to exercise caution because sometimes what they call clean are not what we would call clean, right? And so you still want to kind of look at the labels, really look at different organizations who are rating these products, and get your information from a trustworthy source, and also look at the labels, right? Take a look at the labels, and you become curious, right? Not paranoid or frightened, but curious, and just look things up, as you're looking for something different. Your toothpaste is running out. Look up what you're using, and then look up something that's safer, right? There's pretty much nothing we use that is not toxic. And that's the unfortunate truth of, where we are right now. And so I had a whole list of things that people were asking about, styrofoam coffee cups. Yes, toxic, right? Wouldn't organic foods have less toxins? Yes, they just are not of the same caliber as organic foods made in other countries because our regulations are more lax here. But they are still better than non-organic foods. Let's see. I thought a cleanse would remove toxins. Yes, it would. But again, as we always say, it depends, right? It depends on the person, And so if you are of a deficient metabolic type, a cleanse can actually make you worse. If you are of an excessive metabolic type, then a cleanse would probably work quite well for you. And so you want to be a little bit cautious with cleanses. I always tell people the problem with a cleanse, if you are deficient, is that it will make the deficiencies worse. And you have to remember that part of the reason we don't get rid of toxins when we're exposed to them is because our bodies become incapable of removing them from ourselves, right? And so we have three massive detoxification systems in the human body. The skin is number one, first line of defense. The gastrointestinal system is the other for anything that's ingested or inhaled. And then the third line of defense is the liver. So if something gets through into the bloodstream, the liver then takes care of those toxins, right? But because we have so many toxins now, every system becomes overwhelmed, over time if we're not very judicious and careful. And so what toxins do is they make it harder for your body to function, right? And so just like if you had to drive your car uphill all the time, you would be burning more gas, right? It's the same thing in the body. If the body's always fighting this uphill battle to get rid of toxins, you're going to burn more fuel and energy in the body. And again, if you don't continue to meet the demands of how much fuel your body needs, you will become deficient. Right? You will become depleted in vitamins and minerals and hormones and other things that your body needs to execute its detoxification functions. So just like if you're having to drive your car constantly up hills and on tough terrain and et cetera, you'd have to fill your gas tank more. You'd change your tires more often. You'd have to get more frequent oil changes. Otherwise, your car would start having trouble. It's the same thing in the body. If you're not feeding your body appropriately, breathing properly, exercising right, sleeping enough, etc., to compensate for the toxic load, you will become depleted, right? And people who are depleted are those that are tired, and then they get more tired over time. And so if you are that person who has done cleanses in the past and you felt like you got hit by a truck while you were doing the cleanse, then you are probably of a deficient metabolic type. And you don't want to do cleanses if you're a deficient metabolic type without some type of supervision, right? People who are depleted need to fix their depletions. They need to fix their deficiencies so that the body can detox itself. And only after those deficiencies are corrected should you do a cleanse, because cleanses will drain out your vitamins and minerals and hormones and other things that you use for energy. That's part of the process. They're trying to drain out toxins, but they are not specific to just toxins. They will also drain out other things with them. And so you want to be mindful of that. And, there are several toxins out there where they comes with vitamins and minerals and things to help support, the body. And so you just want to be cautious with cleanses, but yes, cleanses remove toxins. There are certain toxins that cleanses cannot remove, like heavy metals, mercury, lead, arsenic, aluminum. Those would be harder to get rid of with your kind of generic garden variety cleanse. And so, again, you want to be a little bit cautious with detoxes because you may need something specific for heavy metals if you are exposed to that. And, with the dawn of the computer age and having servers, enormous servers housing and collecting data and storing data, we are being inundated with heavy metals from the machinery that is used to do that. And so, there are some reports coming out, studies coming out that the clouds where things are stored on servers and computers are possibly more dangerous to the environment than the oil industry. And so that's another thing that our modernization is introducing is heavy metal toxicity. And so those are not easily removed with just your garden variety cleanses. So, what I recommend to people is to be tested for heavy metals. So far the gold standard, and it's not perfect, is urine to test for that. And I know you can also get hair samples and such as well. But by gold standard criteria, at least in the integrative medicine world, it's urine to see what metals are circulating in the body. And then you would want to then, under supervision, have those metals removed and then repeat the testing to make sure that they're successfully being removed. Most of the time, what we see actually, once we start to remove the metals with a chelating agent or an herb that is specific for heavy metals, we actually see more heavy metals the next time. That's not because you're being exposed to yet more heavy metals, but simply because we're unearthing the metals that had kind of lodged themselves deep in the cracks and crevices of the body that are actually being mobilized so they can leave the body. So it's actually a good sign. But eventually, after you see that spike in the metals, you should see the metals come back down as a sign that that it's working. And then periodically you want to be tested again because we're all kind of being exposed to this stuff. So in order to really protect yourself, the first thing is to get rid of the major things you can do something about in your home: food, water, right? Lotions, makeup, detergents, soaps, Mr. Plumber, those types of things. I don't use those things at all. I would rather just go down there with a snake or whatever and just manually dislodge, whatever gunk is in the pipe. Without having to use, the Drano or Mr. Plumber or whatever those agents are. They're not great for you, right? Dishwashing liquid, all of those things. I won't use pesticides, right? I would rather use Mother Earth or diatomaceous earth, which naturally kills insects, right? So it doesn't look pretty. It's a bunch of white powder everywhere. But I'd rather that than, to get sick. I won't use weed killer. I'd rather use concentrated vinegar, right? And so, is my lawn the prettiest in the neighborhood? No. But, I don't have to worry about getting sick either. And so these are things that you can do, right? There's so many options, so many things you can do. The other thing is electromagnetic radiation. And so, your phones, the smart meters that the electric companies have installed on the sides of all homes, right? Those emit a lot of, potentially dangerous electromagnetic fields that will interact with our own electromagnetic field and cause, a disharmony, which can cause then potentially disease. So it's just yet another thing on top of all the other things that can contribute to making people sick, right? And so getting what is it called? Gosh, it's a meter, tri-field meter. You can buy a meter and you can go around your house and look for electromagnetic radiation. And you'll see the meter kind of spike if there's a place in your home where you're being exposed to excessive amounts of electromagnetic radiation. And then you can purchase the EMF blockers or electromagnetic radiation blockers. And what they are devices that will neutralize the electromagnetic signals and render them neutral so that they're not as toxic. And so you can slap one on your smart meter. I have one on the back of my cell phone here, have one on the back of my laptop. My kids have pads that they put their laptops on top of to protect them. You can put one on your modem or anywhere in your home where you perceive too much electromagnetic radiation. You can put these EMF blockers, and then you go back around with your meter, right? And you make sure that the signal went down. So it's the meter that will tell you if you have successfully done what you set out to do, right? So if the reading is high before you put the blocker on, it should go down in response to the blocker. Now, you may need more than one blocker, depending on how much electromagnetic radiation is coming from a device. And so I've had to add multiple blockers around certain areas to get the signal dampened sufficiently, to render the signal neutral. And so the meter will tell you if you have successfully achieved that goal or not. And then you want to repeat that periodically, right? Because different electronics go in and out of your house, right? You might buy new computers, you might upgrade things, you might upgrade your routers, your modems and such. And so you just want to be very, aware of, if I get a bunch of new equipment, I want to go around with my meter again and make sure that nothing has changed. You might need to move the blockers around. You might need to, check things differently, or rearrange things or add things. And so that's a good way to get rid of EMF blockers, right? The other thing is foods. It turns out that antioxidants are very powerful natural EMF blockers. And so they naturally protect our electromagnetic field. And so nuts are on that category. Coffee, I'm happy to say. Green tea, grapes, turmeric, curcumin, all of the antioxidants that we list help you to negate the effects of harmful electromagnetic radiation and radio frequencies that you might be exposed to. And so, nature has a built-in defense mechanism, right? We have our detoxification systems. There are various foods that we can eat. Dark chocolate is an antioxidant. So we have a lot of choices, in terms of eating good, green leafy vegetables are loaded with antioxidants. And so there are many, many food options that we can consume that protect us from toxins. But because we underconsume those foods, it kind of leaves us wide open to be vulnerable to these toxins. And so, making sure that your nutrition is appropriate, tons of green leafy vegetables, tons of antioxidants, sufficient clean amounts of protein. And that's, if you're an omnivore and you eat meat, or if you're vegan or vegetarian, you don't eat meat, you still have to have sufficient amounts of protein within the categories of foods that you eat. And so I think we have more questions here. 5G waves, is there really a concern about them? EMF is a real concern. My mom told us to avoid playing near power lines. Yeah, that's true. As I grew up, I just wrote that off as old wives' tales, yet now I'm wondering. Yeah, don't worry, right? Should I worry? The answer is no, don't worry. Just do something about it, right? Nobody can live on the planet anymore without a cell phone, right? That's just how it is. But, slap an EMF blocker on it, right? And again, just make sure you get your stuff from reputable sources, right? And the meter will tell you if it's a reputable source, right? The meter levels, if they go up, should go down. And also make sure you're using the device when you're trying to measure what it's emitting, right? Don't have it shut off, because then you won't see what it's emitting. So make sure it's on and running as you're measuring the EMF exposure, so that it's a more realistic. And they're not going to send out the same signals all the time. You're not going to get just one number and it's just going to stay there. It goes up and down depending on what it's transmitting, depending on how much power it's using, and so the meter will be bouncing around. Right? You just want to make sure it bounces around at a lower level after you have put on the EMF blocker. And again, your nutrition, tons of antioxidants, right? You can just look up antioxidants. You can Google it and you'll get a list of, probably 100 different things that you can eat. Just make sure they're organic, right? And eat them, right? And every day you just have different types of antioxidants. And so you round out your diet, right? That's the best way. So you solidify your interior through your nutrition, making sure you get an adequate amount of sleep, right? Most people need at least 8 hours of sleep a night. And we always talk about when to go to sleep. Don't go to sleep too late, right? Get to bed between 10 and 11 so that your detoxification systems will function when you sleep, right? Make sure that you're exercising, but not over exercising, right? Everything is about balance always. So make sure you're moving the body sufficiently so that your circulation is moving, so that you can mobilize the toxins so they can come out in your stool and in your urine. That's how we get rid of them. And so, these are all things that you want to really focus on, just getting solidly under your belt, right? And then make sure you have trustworthy apps. But again, should I worry? No, never worry about this stuff. Just simply be empowered. Become curious about this stuff. Don't worry about this stuff, right? Because worry, it makes you sick, right? And so I tell people, don't worry. This is not to frighten anyone. This is simply to empower you to know, yes, these things are toxic. Let's not have our heads buried under the ground and pretend that they're not toxic because we don't want them to be toxic, right? Let's get our head out and say, okay, it's toxic. Now what's the next step? The next step is get rid of what I can get rid of, substitute them with safer options. We can go to the environmental working group to find out what those safer options are. And there are lots of other apps too. I'm just using the environmental working group because that just happens to be the one that I use. And again, you want to make sure, like, who's giving you this information? Who do they work for, right? You just want to be very careful that you're getting the information from a trustworthy source, right? And then you make sure you can have corroboration of the information, right? If one app is telling you something safe, but 5 others are telling you it's toxic, you got to start to suspect that one app, right? So, check around. Don't just rely on one thing. Become curious, but don't become overwhelmed, right? So if you're going out shopping for food today, stick with the organic food aisles, right? It's a running joke, but it's true. Stay on the outside of the grocery store. Don't go down the middle aisles, right? All the processed food is in the middle aisles. And all of the fresh produce and cleaner things appear to be on the outer areas of the grocery store, right? So just have that in mind, right? And I tell people never go shopping when you're hungry because you'll start grabbing all kinds of crazy things that you don't want to eat, right? So I tell people never shop hungry. Always eat first, then you go shopping. And that way, you have your logical mind with you when you're going around the aisles, and then you can stop and look at your food labels. You can be in the grocery store and just looking things up right on the apps, right? And making sure that you're buying things that are safer. So time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Awakened Wellness Now with Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and we will be right back. Thank you.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE-integrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
ECSTATIC is a U.S. nonprofit dedicated to the dream of ending childhood malnutrition for millions of children around the world through the manufacture of PlumpyNut and other nutrient-rich peanut-based ready-to-use foods. ECSTATIC has already delivered life and hope to nearly 1 million children in over 26 developing countries. To find out how you can join ECSTATIC's dream of ending childhood malnutrition, please visit edciaglobal.org.
What if dreams can diagnose your life? What if we can meet the love of our life in dreams? Join host Kat O'Keefe Canavas, the #1 internationally best-selling author of Dreams That Can Save Your Life, written with Duke University medical doctor Larry Burke. Dreaming Healing is where we'll explore dreams, research, and interpret dreams from you, the caller. Dreaming Healing shows can be heard every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, with live shows on the first and third evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Come live your dreams out loud with Kat.
Are you searching for a way to help create global change? Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's vision is to have an eclectic group of radio hosts dedicated to educating, enlightening, and helping humankind with positive messages and tools that enhance lives using different modalities and programs. If you would like to join our team and help illuminate the universe, call Deborah at 508-226-1723 or Deborah at dreamvision7radio.com. This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we're back.
Thank you, Rachel. Was there a question from YouTube or just saying hi?
There's a statement saying, glad that you're back. They missed seeing you for a while.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be back. Yeah, we had some issues at the station, I guess. And then I think I had an issue with my internet the week before or something. Oh, no, it was a dog emergency, actually. My dog tore some kind of ligament. But anyway, yes, we're back. And so thank you for that comment. I think we had, where do I buy this EMF tester? You can just get them on Amazon. I use the Tri-Field. It was used in some studies. And so usually things that are used in medical studies are fairly reliable. And so I just picked that one. There are many, but it's called Tri-Field, Trifield. I got mine on Amazon, so you can get it online anywhere. Would grounding my home be helpful? Yeah, it would actually, because that's going to pump electrons into the body, right? So the harm with toxins and harmful electromagnetic radiation and radio frequencies is that they interrupt our electromagnetic fields. They interrupt the electric circuitry of the body. And the body is really basically just a bag of water with a current flowing through it. Anything that has a current flowing through it will have an electromagnetic field emitted from it at a 90-degree angle to it. And so, it's easy to see how toxins can interrupt that, and how other magnetic fields that are dissonant, right, will interrupt that. And so it's just waves colliding, right, in ways that don't match. That's what harmful EMFs do. And so, yes, pumping more electrons into the body will help, because that will just put more electrons into the electrical field, and that will help regenerate the electromagnetic fields that you do want in your body, right? And we know that the human heart in particular has a very potent electromagnetic field, and we don't want to interrupt that, right? And so does every other system in the body, and so making sure that the body electric, if you will, forget who coined that term, but making sure that that is functioning. And so grounding your home would help. Grounding yourself also helps, right? Walking barefoot on the earth. You can get a grounding pad and sleep on a grounding pad. You can also get ionized water. So ionized water is simply water that has more electrons in it. It passes through clay filters and crystal filters, and that it exchanges electrons with the crystals. And so there's just more electrons in the water. And as you drink that, then more electrons go into your body. Another really good thing I recommend for people is infrared saunas. They get rid of toxins as well. So that's a really powerful tool. And you don't have to be as cautious with infrared saunas as you do with detoxes and cleanses. They tend to be a bit gentler. You can control the temperatures, much more appropriately with an infrared than with, cleanses and toxins. And so you can go into an infrared sauna, you can control the temperature, and you just increase the temperature slightly as you tolerate it more and more, so that you kind of sweat out toxins, right? And that's very helpful. Infrared saunas are just basically mimicking sunlight at dawn and dusk. And that's been shown to be very healing. It helps the cells to restore themselves, and it helps bring more electrons into the body. So it's all about the electrons ultimately. So you can get ionized water to do that. You can ground your home. You can ground yourself. You can ground your bed so that when you're sleeping, for 8 hours, hopefully, or 9, you'll have electrons pumped into your system during that time. So these are all strategies. Antioxidants, right? The reason antioxidants are so potent is because they help recycle the body's electrons. And they exchange electrons. So it's really all about electrons. So grounding is actually a really good thing to do. We get sick when we run out of electrons, and not that we're going to run out of electrons, but when they're obstructed, and they can't flow. And so the more that you pump in there, the more you're going to have, the ability to recover, the ability to restore yourself. So it's a good question. And yes, that wouldn't have been something I would have thought to say. So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's it for the questions. All right. Yeah. So, what else can we do in our house, right? We talked about makeup. We talked about food, right? Making sure that your food is not genetically modified, right? Everything you put in your mouth should at least have a no GMO label on it. Preferably organic, right? Preferably humanely raised, preferably fed non-GMO grains and such, right? Preferably grass-fed, grass-raised. If it's fish, wild caught, right? We joke around about the new slogan that they use. It says, farm raised in the ocean. There's no such thing as farm raising in an ocean. And so you want someone to have gone out on a boat and gotten your fish for you, or go out on the boat yourself and get your own fish. But this idea of farm raised in the ocean is not what you want. And you definitely don't want farm raised, period, right? And so those are some things. So many things are being allowed to be genetically modified now. So you want to be very cautious with that. And then again, things you can't control, don't worry about it. But if you need to paint your house, look for a more eco-friendly paint, right? For the next coat, right? So those are things that you can begin to do. And again, don't try and do this all at once. It will not work. You'll get overwhelmed. But develop a curiosity, hey, we're running low on toothpaste. What else can we get? Is this a safe brand? And if it isn't, what are safer brands we can buy, right? And yes, you're going to see an uptick in the bill, and I just caution people to be careful and to remember that you're making an investment in yourself, and it's not so much an expense as an investment. It really is, and the more you can remove from your plate in terms of toxic products, the healthier you're going to be, the more you will delay diseases, so instead of getting sick when you're 50, you might make it till you're 60, right? But that's 10 years of better health. And so I call that a win in today's environment. It would be better not to ever get a disease, right? But if we at least think in these small chunks, it helps us to justify what we're doing. It's an investment. I can't stress that enough to people. It's an investment. And yes, the $7 strawberries hurt, when you're paying the grocery bill, but I don't even look at my grocery bill anymore. I just don't even want to know, here's my card. Because it's not even relevant anymore. It's not even a choice as to whether or not I can eat organic or not. It's not even a choice. Now I understand, some people just can't afford it. I understand that. And for them, perhaps, starting to plant things yourself might be of benefit, and that might actually save you money in the long run, right? So looking at planting your own stuff, start with some vegetables that you eat a lot of, or fruits that you eat a lot of, and see if you can plant them yourself somewhere. And that should be cheaper, right, in the long run, and just use organic soil to begin, organic seeds to begin. And then in the long run, as those things start to produce vegetables and fruits, and you don't have to pay that grocery bill, you could perhaps save the money and then pay the extra stuff at the grocery store for the things you don't have to, for the things you can't grow on your own. So those are some things to start looking at seriously. And I know that's being done already. This is not a new concept, people growing their own stuff. It's a very real problem that people are looking for solutions for. And so, that's an idea, again, becoming curious. You can go to the local library and get books out on how to do these things, and, involve your family in it. And, just kind of get everybody involved, or maybe involve the community. People are doing more and more co-ops. These are all really important things that we can plug into to start to save money and to start to be healthy, and to really truly invest in ourselves and in our families, because, that's going to be the secret to staying well moving forward. So I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe. You've been listening to Awaken Wellness Now. And until next time, I send you many blessings. Thank you.
Join us next time on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, to learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness. Awakened Wellness airs every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern of each month. Meanwhile, you can join our Facebook page at facebook.com/awakenedwellness and let us know what you'd like to discuss on future episodes. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit riobeintegrativemedicine.com. This show is part of the Dream Vision 7 radio network.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe.